study,
and play come together on a Windows 11 PC.
And for a limited time, college students get
The best of both worlds.
Get the Unreal College Deal. Everything you need to study and play with select Windows 11 PCs. Eligible students get a year of Microsoft 365 Premium and a year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with a custom color Xbox wireless controller. Learn more at windows.com/student offer. While supplies last. Ends June 30th. Terms at aka.ms/collegepc.
The new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't undo your last hire. The lone wolf, who you thought was a good collaborator because you didn't have the right candidate insights. But once you hired them, it was all hoarding info, declining meetings, and howling at the full moon? But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can go deeper than just the resume to find you a perfect fit. By using insights from the LinkedIn network to give you a short list of best fit candidates. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
You're listening to the Zero to Travel podcast, where we explore exciting travel-based work, lifestyle, and business opportunities, helping you to achieve your wildest travel dreams. And now your host, world wanderer and travel junkie, Jason Moore.
Hey, it's Jason here. Quick note on this special bonus episode I'm dropping this week. I was standing at a podcasting convention in Austin, Texas, when this guy came up to me. His name's Fede Vargas, and he was just so nice, and we connected right away, and he said, hey, I listened to your podcast, and we started talking, and I couldn't believe it. I was really shocked, and turns out he has his own podcast. It's called My Most Authentic Life, and we were at this convention, and outside, up on the rooftop, looking over the city of Austin, Texas, they had a little recording studio set up. So he said, hey, man, do you want to record an episode of my podcast with me tomorrow? So I said, hell yeah, I want to do that. I mean, talking about your most authentic life, that is a topic that we talk about a ton on the show, right? Just these unconventional paths that you've heard from guests and some of the themes that run through chasing that unconventional path or living an unconventional lifestyle, whether it's, battling your fears, kind of leaning into your intuition, finding a way to give yourself permission to do the things you want to do, despite maybe the internal and external forces that may be working against you. All of these things, you've heard a lot of these themes covered on the podcast. And I thought, well, this was a wonderful conversation. I wanted to get this podcast on your radar. It's called My Most Authentic Life. We'll link up to it in the show notes, of course. And that's why here I'm going to republish the episode that Fede put out called Give Yourself Permission to Choose Differently with yours truly. Yes, the tables are turned. It's an interview with me, so hopefully that's okay with you. I am going to be doing most of the talking in this one because I'm being asked the questions. And I just thought, well, this will maybe give you a little bit more information about my background, some of the stories that I share here today are things that have influenced me and still influence my work today. And I just thought this would be a fun one to put out for you. So check out this show if you enjoy this conversation, My Most Authentic Life with Fede Vargas. And I'm just going to drop the episode right here in full, recorded live in Austin, Texas. Stick around on the back end. I will leave you with a quote on authenticity, of course, to wrap this one up. Thank you so much for listening and enjoy.
Welcome to My Most Authentic Life. This is a very special episode. We're on location at South by Southwest at Podcast Movement Evolutions. We're recording on the rooftop of Skybox in the heart of downtown Austin, Texas. So this is a pretty cool experience. A lot of big energy this weekend, a lot of creative industries and creative people coming together. We have creators, we have brands, and the broader ecosystem shaping what's next for podcasting. And what I really love about creative people coming together is that it's always about the spirit of community. And how do you build community? You build that through connection. And I've had a pretty cool connection this weekend already with someone I've known for a few years, but they didn't know me. And that's the beauty of podcasting. I started listening to the Zero to Travel podcast during my career break as I was navigating my own professional and personal redirection. And it was a big resource as I shaped that next chapter of my life. So Jason Moore, the host of the Zero to Travel podcast, is our guest today on my most authentic life on location at South by Southwest in Austin. Jason,
wow.
Welcome to the show.
That was super pro, man. I mean, thank you. No, I was, first of all, when you came up to me yesterday, I guess, and you mentioned you listened to the show, and then you asked me to be on your show and do this here, and I was like, oh, that's such an honor. So thank you.
And, it's kind of, a little surreal, more alignment on my podcasting journey. Less than 24 hours ago, we didn't know each other.
No, yeah. That's an interesting thing about podcasting. You get to know somebody kind of through the audio, and it's such a joy to be able to do this in person. So
Absolutely.
I'm glad we connected, man.
Yeah, and over 1,000 episodes now on the show.
Yeah, I mean, between Zero to Travel and some other shows I've had, I think I've recorded about 1,000 episodes, which is kind of insane.
Yeah, totally. And over 12 million downloads. So with that, am I the first person that's come up to me and be like, hey, I listened to your show?
I've had it happen before, but not too often. It's just unexpected. And if it happens, it's kind of almost unbelievable. Because you know how it is. I mean, when you start something like this, and this is for anybody listening, everybody starts at zero with a new thing, whether it's a social media channel or, trying to get a degree or whatever. And so when I started this, it was really that intention of just, hey, I want to give people the information to help them travel the world on their terms that I wish I had when I was starting out and didn't have a clue and had like $20,000 in student debt. The fact that I put something out there that anybody listened to or anybody spent even 5 minutes with was like, wow, that's so cool, So it's humbling when somebody comes up to you and says they've listened to your show, and it starts from just an idea, and then you have that connection, and that's what it's about. That's what this format's about. It's about.
Exactly.
Yeah, connection, community. It's about serving people, serving an audience. It's what makes it meaningful. You have all the business stuff, and there's a lot of corporate stuff going on here and things like that. But at the end of the day, man, it's about
you get to have fun and do
this. It's about sharing the human stories. And trying to provide value and just like having fun.
Absolutely. I came here with my business of podcasting hat on, networking strategy on the brain. And when we agreed to do this, I'm like, oh, wow, I also get to have fun and play with podcasting.
Yes,
which is
this
cool.
is the fun part.
Exactly. And we're going to get into a lot of key things about your journey and the podcast and the themes that you unpack there. There are three things when I first discovered your show at that time in my life, like I said, during my career break, that I really gravitated to. And we're going to get through those themes here today, and that is people that are living unconventionally is definitely one theme that you explore. To life design or life redesign is something I really started to focus at that time, and finally, I think probably the one that anchors all of that is, and you speak about this on your show, the people giving yourself the permission to rethink and reassess your life. So we're going to get into all that because I think you're kind of an expert in this field.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I've had quite an unconventional life, I guess, by sort of status quo standards, at least according to my sort of cultural upbringing, where you, at the time when I grew up, it was like, oh, you get a job, it's kind of like the normal stuff, and I wasn't doing the normal things. So I had that experience personally, and also through hearing other people's stories. So if that makes me an expert, I guess so.
So first, just to set the scene, right? I'm always curious about kind of like the human core emotion with these topics.
Yeah.
And you've interviewed, hundreds, over 1,000 episodes. You've really adventurous. You've heard interviewed a lot of adventurous people. Heard about their unconventional journeys. What is the most common trait of people that pursue an unconventional path?
Yeah, at the heart of it, it may be the third point you brought up, which is giving yourself permission to do it in the first place. That maybe is easier than it seems on the surface. Because it's just like, okay, well, I can go do this thing. I talked to one guest. I always remember she she was like a city girl. She'd never really ridden a bike, and she had like $50, and she decided to like bike across the country. And she just said she was going to do it, you know? For my show in particular, traveling and putting yourself out there, there's sort of a level of trust that you have to have in the world and in other people, that people are good inherently and that things are going to work out. Now, all that sort of like woo-woo sort of stuff aside, in a way, there's the practical aspect of that too. And so it's like finding the balance between sort of like the practicalities of what you're trying to work towards, whether it's, you know, taking a career break and maybe traveling for a year or biking across the US or whatever. There's certain practical things you maybe have to figure out. But there's also the sort of intuitive side where it's just like, hey, you might feel like internally this is something you have to do. And everybody's had that feeling, right? Like you have this feeling where you're like, I don't know why, I just need to do this thing, or I need to go to Spain for a month, or walk the Camino, or, you know, whatever it is. And, you know, your practical mind can get into the way, and oh, well, you know, who are you to do that? Or you don't really have the money, or can you really make that happen? And you also might have external forces working against you. Maybe you have family that's not necessarily supportive of an unconventional journey. Maybe it's friends that are like sort of, you know, oh no, you know, they're not maybe the best in terms of supporting your dreams. You know, ultimately it comes down to you embracing your intuitive calling, whatever that may be in that moment or in that period of your life, and kind of saying, yeah, like, listen to this. You know, I'm going to give myself permission to listen to this. Okay, I want to make a podcast. Then you get the sort of negative, well, who am I to make a podcast? I don't have anything to say. You know, all these things that people deal with internally, but kind of rising above that and just saying, no, I'm going to give myself permission to actually do this, and I'm going to enjoy this journey. I'm going to learn from it, and just kind of embracing that. I think it's a big step in the right direction towards like an unconventional dream. You ultimately, like, the first sort of obstacle you have to conquer is yourself in many ways.
Totally.
Your own thinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, what do you feel?
Yeah. What's interesting about, I think, your show, and I know you know your audience way better, but I think it also has broad appeal, because what you're talking about is this like travel specific niche.
Yeah.
But really now also the unconventional path, I think, doesn't necessarily have to mean you do something huge, like uproot your life forever. You could be unconventional you could be unconventional and find adventure in your daily life. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Like, it's one person's unconventional is another person's conventional. Yeah, you know, totally. When I talk to somebody who's walked around the world, they don't think it's so weird to talk to somebody that's biked around the world. That's, you know, that may be more conventional to them. Totally. That's just, you know, they're just relating to each other's experience. You know, those are the big things, like you said. Going back to travel, like you said, it doesn't always have to be travel related, but, you know, a trip to Paris may be way out of their comfort zone. Maybe like, first time I've gone overseas, I don't know what I'm doing. I've talked to a lot of, solo travelers. They never traveled solo before. So, you know, going on your first trip by yourself. But there's all versions of that in life. You know, for you, it could be, you know, applying to some job you don't feel qualified for or whatever. What I've learned is a big lesson, and I do want to give people takeaways as they're listening, is for some of this stuff, like, if you want to sort of go down an unconventional path, subjectively an unconventional path, I feel like that's a muscle you can build. Like, understanding that everybody, I'd say most people, if not everybody, has versions of like fear they need to get over, or self-doubt. Imposter syndrome. You've probably heard that on your show before. And, you know, acting in spite of that, you have the imposter syndrome, but you do it anyway. And the more you kind of do that, the more you sort of build that muscle, and it doesn't mean the imposter syndrome goes away. Yes. It just means that you're able to ignore it better in a way. And so that's one thing, I hope that's resonating with some people listening, because maybe you're struggling with something right now that you're trying to push through. And just knowing, I think it helps me to remind myself, imposter syndrome and these types of things, that's actually normal. And it's just a matter of me just, okay, there you are, that's great, I acknowledge it, it's there, but I'm still gonna kind of push forward and do this thing anyway. I think that's huge. Absolutely, yeah, and that's it's a muscle that you're training, is a perfect way to describe it. And a big theme that you touched upon with the guests on the show is like that confidence is built through taking action. Yeah. And if you remain stagnant, then there's no muscle to build, right?
Yes,
It's like,
yeah.
exactly. So that's a perfect way to describe it.
Yeah. And there's some like practical ways I do think you can push past that, because it's easier said than done at some points when you're having that type of fear and you're talking yourself out of things. One of those ways is just reminding yourself, just paying attention to your thoughts, I think, and having an awareness of, what's the self-talk around this? Am I like catastrophizing? Am I thinking about the worst case scenarios associated with this unconventional choice? Am I actually reminding myself of the fact that, hey, what if quitting this job, for example, traveling the world for the year and coming back doesn't mean that I won't have a job when I come back? What if it actually means that I'll have a better job?
Yeah.
Or I'll have a better
Yeah.
career? Like
Exactly.
those things can be true too.
Yeah.
So it's like reminding yourself of the positive things that can be true. And I don't want to get into like all rah, Tony Robbins, like positive motivational psychology. But it is a fact that, you have to remind yourself there are hidden doors that are like only available to you when you go down different paths, and you don't know what they're going to be. And some of them may be challenging, but some of them may give you the biggest gifts you've ever had.
Absolutely.
That you might meet your spouse. You might, find your next business idea. I mean, it can be anything. So you're reminding yourself, not focusing on like the sort of like the negative things that can happen, but remind yourself of like the sort of amazing things that might be waiting too.
Totally.
That has helped me sort of push through some of those fears.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yesterday when we were talking, we talked about the opening doors, right? So by taking action or taking that unexpected step, sometimes it opens other doors.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've experienced that in your life. Like, do you have a time where you felt like, you were hesitant to do something, and then afterwards you're like, I'm so glad I did that because X, Y, and Z?
Yeah, I think it's like you said, it's working through the fear.
Yeah.
And I always get pleasantly surprised by taking an action that maybe that scared me a lot.
Yeah.
Because you walk, this trip, this is a perfect example, right? I actually decided on coming to South by relatively last minute.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of juggling a few considerations, but then something in my gut feeling told me, no, I need to go. And there's been so much happening. I wouldn't be recording this podcast, right?
Yeah. And who doesn't like to be pleasantly surprised?
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
Like at the very least, if you're, hemming and hawing about a decision, you can be like, well, maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. Okay.
Exactly.
Hey, that's a good enough reason to go for it. So we'll get back to the interview in just a moment. Now, back to the show.
Okay, so what is the most unconventional thing you've done, or did you ever at one point? I mean, you're like miles ahead in terms of how people like consider the unconventional. Was there one thing you were saying, "Whoa, this is nuts"?
Well, I would say that's an interesting question. I mean, I think one of the things that I ended up doing, so when I had the $20,000 in college debt and I just had a dream of traveling the world and no idea how to do it, I ended up sort of asking a different question, and that's, well, what if instead of just looking for a regular job, why don't I just look for a job that requires me to travel? Then I can get paid, I can pay my bills, and I can still travel. And just being flexible and open to what that would mean, that was huge. And so I sort of changed my job search from like sort of corporate America type stuff to like, let's see what kind of like jobs that require travel are out there. And I'm bringing this up as an example because in my head, I'm thinking, well, everybody wants these jobs. How am I going to get, I'm just coming out of college. How am I going to get picked for this? But the reality is most people don't want to travel like that. Yeah. And so there were these interesting opportunities. So long story short, I fell into this industry where I was working as a tour manager and traveling around like the US 10 months out of the year, managing like these traveling events. And I did all sorts of wacky jobs and got to travel all over the place because of this career. And I ended up working as a tour manager in music and doing all these crazy jobs. One of the jobs I did is driving like a giant Catmobile around for Meow Mix. And we were, it was just like literally looked like a giant cat with whiskers, and so like we were the ones that pulled up and they're just like, what are you doing? Like, what is this? So, these jobs were very unconventional. And so I can bring up a lot of examples of just sort of weird jobs I've had like that. But from an overarching point, I was basically nomadic for a decade, traveling and doing these jobs. And that was an unconventional path. And along the way, I saw my friends working in corporate America, getting promoted, getting married, and all these things. And sometimes I would feel the stress of that sort of external, like, oh, am I supposed to be doing that? Look, they're climbing the career ladder and I'm sort of like a tour manager just doing these weird jobs. But ultimately I came back to, this is what my heart wanted. Like every time like new jobs came up, I was like, I just want to keep traveling. This is all I want to do. And so thankfully I was able to just listen to like what I wanted to do. And who knew years later that, falling behind my corporate career that didn't exist and doing these sort of random jobs like that, being nomadic and living this sort of nomadic weird lifestyle of being sort of like what my friends and I called each other, glorified carnies, would end up being like sort of valuable. Like this is the stuff that I talk about in my podcast, being a nomad. And it was not normal at that time to be I didn't know anybody who was nomadic, who didn't have a home, who just traveled, didn't live anywhere. There were people doing it, but we didn't have the internet. There was no way to connect with these people, and it wasn't a large group of people. Now you have the digital nomad movement. You have remote workers. There's all this stuff.
Whole infrastructure now. Yeah.
But I can speak to that authentically because I lived it. But I had no way of knowing that path would lead into the work I was doing later. And so to tie this all up, I think if you're choosing unconventional, first of all, go for it because life's going to be interesting. Yeah. And, you'll be listening to your heart and just like, you can't go wrong with that. I mean, make it interesting. At the very least, you're going to learn something and it's going to be interesting, even if you fall on your face or fail. But yeah, you never know how those experiences are going to tie into the things you do later. And I really, truly believe that. And, if somebody's listening right now and they're even just like, let's say they're, cleaning rooms at a hotel or they have some kind of job that, whatever, like whether they love it or hate it, know that the experiences you're having are valuable and they're probably going to serve you later on, even if you think right now you're stuck or you may be wasting your time or things like that. I truly believe that those things surface later in a way that can be helpful to you, to your self-development, to maybe your career development. And so I think embracing like where you are now and the lessons that come with that is an important part of a journey of unconventionality. And look, if I believe this, like if you want to sort of have like an unconventional path, you're going to have to make decisions that feel uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
And
embrace the discomfort.
If you're just like, if that's your value, like hold that value of being unconventional and like kind of taking a different way and let that be sort of your guiding light and understand that these decisions are supposed to feel uncomfortable. So when they do, don't be surprised.
Yeah.
Just, all right, that means you're on the right path. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can't get anywhere good without a bit of resistance or a lot.
Yeah. So I hope that wasn't too long of a soapbox rant.
No, totally. I mean, this is the big life changes, unconventional paths. This is the core, of what we talk about on here. And I think one of the things that anchors all of this, the unconventional path, is the pivot. And the pivot, the definition of the pivot, I think has changed a lot. I think definitely at the beginning of the decade, we thought of the pivot as the big decision, right? Selling the house, moving to the other side of the world. What I like about the way you frame the pivot too is that you talk about a pivot within a pivot, in that there's constant readjustments that have to be made as you go along. Yeah. So what does the pivot look like for you? Has it changed on this, track that you've been on over these last 2 decades?
Well, I'd like to talk about both actually, because I think that a big pivot can come with just an idea also. So let me give a specific example of that. Again, in the travel world, just because that's what I'm so familiar with, but I think people will understand what I'm talking about. So when you think about somebody who makes a decision to travel the world for a year, right? Let's say they have that idea and they want to do it. Even if they're not traveling the world for a year yet, even if they're saving up for that and it's going to be like, we're going to do this in 3 years, just that idea and that decision is a pivot in and of itself, because I think people undervalue sort of like, in this case, what I call the journey before the journey. So when you make that decision, that changes your whole life immediately. Now the trip might not be for 3 years, but now every decision you make is sort of filtered through this idea you have and this concept and this dream that you're working towards. So you're going to spend your money differently. Maybe you're not going to buy the same things that you bought before. Maybe you even move, maybe you're going to get rid of some stuff because you're preparing. Maybe you're going to sell your house. There's a domino effect of maybe these big things that happen all from this one decision. And so I would just encourage people when you make these sort of big pivot decisions, it's not necessarily means that you have to do the exact action then, but think about the value of like everything related to that decision. Is that aligned with your values? Is that aligned with maybe some of the other things you want to work towards? Because when you think about a decision like that, well, maybe you've been meaning to get rid of some of your stuff. So there's like minimalism. Maybe you've been meaning to get another job to like save some extra money. Maybe you've been meaning to cut down on some of your unnecessary expenses. Well, this gives you like a sort of a framework to do that. And so I think that that's a valuable thing, that a pivot can just be a decision, and then you can get a lot of value in that journey leading up to the actual goal you're working towards. And then there's sort of like the burn the house down type of decisions, right? Where you're just like, I've talked to people that they're just like, yeah, I want to travel the world and I'm just going to like pack up everything and like do it within a month. And some people do that, and some people operate that way. And so I think another thing is just know yourself, right? You have to understand like what your comfort level is, and it doesn't mean you can't stretch your comfort zone, but you know, if you know you want to have, in the travel sense, like 10 grand saved up for when you come back to settle back into life, you know, make sure you give yourself enough time to do that. There's like the practical aspects of saving money and things like that. But yeah, a lot of my pivots, some of them happen like with hard decisions. Others happen over time. Others, of course, happen unexpectedly, and that's everybody in life. You know, if somebody passes, somebody, loses a job, whatever. You have a spouse break up with you. You break up with a spouse. You know, these are the sort of unexpected pivots, and you have to embrace them too. You know, that's part of life as well. So I think, I don't know if I have one giant takeaway for this other than just the only constant is change. And the more you can kind of get into the flow of that and understand, this is a part of life, and that doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but it is essential and it is a natural part of life. Yeah. The easier it can be to sort of let things come and go in a way. It's challenging. Life is hard, you know?
Yeah, totally. Exactly.
None of these things are easy, you know? Yeah. I mean, we want to listen to podcasts and get like the blueprint and the framework, and that's not what... No,
totally. Actually, no, you make a really good point. I mean, when I started this podcast, it wasn't to teach people how to be authentic. It was actually to make sense of the mess.
Okay, yeah, that's great.
And that's where the real kind of like fun conversation started.
Yes.
That kind of messy transition, which we're always in that messy first draft.
Yeah. But there is I think it's also helpful to understand when you're in a transition and having that hyper awareness around, okay, like this is a transitional point for me. And I think if there was a big takeaway I wanted to give around this is when you're making a pivot or you're in a transitional phase, I would say focus on like giving yourself grace to be in the mess, and that, just be kind with yourself, be compassionate with yourself, give yourself some grace. I think like creating that sort of mindset is a good way to move through these things. It just, be nice to, what?
Yeah. Well, there's something you said earlier that just to kind of like close this part on the pivot is that you said you need to observe yourself.
Yeah.
Understand, analyze your thoughts.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. And I'm just wondering, so now, can you analyze what part of the pivot you're on right now?
Well, I feel like this is another thing. This is a great question. You're good at this. Aren't we always kind of in pivot mode in some ways, whether it's large or small?
Yeah.
I feel like. So is the question like, what pivot am I in?
Can you
right
recognize,
now?
Are you in a pivot? Like,
yes,
are you on
I am.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, for sure. And I go back to trying to be graceful within this point and understand that every day, it's like you're not going to solve all the things on any given day necessarily. And sometimes you don't even know what the hell you're working towards, really. And so then there's an element of that when you don't know exactly what you're working towards, to go back to the being graceful and be like, all right, I'm in a space right now where I'm not necessarily sure, and that's okay. Like maybe I don't need to know today, That doesn't mean you're putting your decisions off forever or setting yourself back. But if you're like aware of these things, you are working towards something just by being aware, I feel. So just trust yourselves. And I think that I have a lot of trust in my, I don't want to say my personal, everybody has their own beliefs, whether it's the universe, God, whatever you want to call it. I feel like there are external forces that contain this sort of infinite creativity. And I trust in that, and that's going to flow through me. And so, And so then I count on that when I'm if I'm feeling stuck, I just trust that, things do work themselves out, and I do have this sort of infinite creativity to kind of rely on and be resourceful and move through these things. But on any given day, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what the hell you're doing. It's just part of it.
Yeah, totally.
We'll get back to the interview in just a moment. Now, back to the show.
And as you're going through all the topics we're talking about, really, they all align. They all overlap, right? The unconventional path, the pivots built into that, and also the life design, right? You've done a lot of work on this.
Lifestyle design, yeah.
Yeah, the lifestyle design. So what does lifestyle design look like?
Okay, yeah. This was the term that Tim Ferriss came up with way back when he published the 4-Hour Work Week. With lifestyle design, I do think it's a very important, for me, it's a value. For me, anyway, personally, I'm not the type of person that feels like I need to optimize everything. I feel like you go from human to robotic when you get into that mode. But a lot of my decisions, I would say maybe the majority of them, I would say maybe all of them, actually. If you're gonna, you can haphazardly make decisions, or you can just have a decent understanding of your values and filter your decisions through that. And I take a good hard look at the lifestyle I want to have. And sometimes, like you said, that needs readjusting, recalibrating. It's kind of like a stock fund. Sometimes you sell stuff off, you got to rebalance the portfolio. It's kind of like that if you want a visual. But for me, I'll use personal example. I have 2 kids, 7 and 9. I thought there's a lot of things you can do. I can do this job. I can do this. I can do, I can try to go after this thing, this dream. I can try to, whatever. Ultimately, I want to have the flexibility to pick my kids up from school, to send them off in the morning. And that means there's just certain things I can't do or chase right now. And that's okay, because the lifestyle I want to have is to have the flexibility to be with my kids. And that required a lot of practical decisions, right? I had a business partner, we were running an online community. I was doing a lot of calls at night, and I said, you know what? I want to cut out these nighttime calls. Yeah. I don't want to have to do this at night anymore. This isn't suiting my lifestyle anymore, because I live in Norway. So a lot of that was US hours. And so that meant I had to break up my whole business partnership and stop doing that. And that's what it took. But, I was willing to do that because I didn't want to have that as part of my daily lifestyle anymore, doing nighttime calls. I'm using specific example, right? So understanding this sort of daily lifestyle, and I can't remember his name. I can give it to you later. We can link up to it in the show notes. But he has this exercise called your perfect average day.
The perfect average day.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so he has people write this out. It's your ideal perfect average day. And what that means is if you write out you're trying to manifest, or you write out your intention for your perfect day, what a lot of people will do is be I'm on a beach in Thailand, I'm drinking Mai Tais, I'm playing volleyball, and that's not really realistic for a daily life. But when you talk about your perfect average day, that's
Did you do an episode about this?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That's you get up, I'll have time to enjoy my coffee. Maybe I do some writing. I can see my kids off to school. I get to take lunch whenever I feel if I want to go for a jog, I can do that. I get to do some creative work in the morning. I work for an hour in the afternoon. You can just kind of create this sort of perfect average day. And that's sort of lifestyle design in a nutshell, right? It's not about the crazy things you're going to do. Those can be a part of it as much as it is just what's your daily life look like? And then the decisions I make, if they're not aligned with that, it's okay temporarily. If I want to take on something that's going to make me a little crazy for a month, as long as I know I'm okay with that. But if it's going to disrupt sort of my daily lifestyle, I have to be really intentional with how I design my lifestyle. And I think filtering your decisions through your ideal lifestyle is a good way to just protect your time and protect that, and make sure that you're working towards ultimately a good daily life, which is your life.
Absolutely. And I think, I'm not sure if I'm thinking of that episode on your show, if I've heard this before as well, but it's once you design the perfect day, if you think of the budget it costs to have that perfect day, actually it's not as expensive as your dream life is actually quite affordable.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there's practicalities too.
Yeah.
Frank Kern was the name of he's sort of like a superstar, like old school marketing guy. If you look up the video for that, he has a whole talk on it.
Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, this is awesome. And I think, it brings us to all of this, like you said off the top, there's no unconventional path without giving yourself the permission to rethink and rewire and to reassess. And in my opinion, there's no bigger gift than that.
Yeah.
Giving yourself the permission to do something.
Yes.
Walk us through that. When did you give yourself permission? Or is it...
You have to kind of constantly do that along the way, you know? I mean, I can even talk about recently, we were talking before we recorded, I play in a band in Norway called Laundry House. If people were on Spotify, people want to listen, rock music.
We're not sponsored by Laundry House.
But, I have a lot, no, sponsored by Laundry House. No, but I have a lot of self-doubt and lack of confidence around music. It's something I love, and I love to create music. I like to play guitar, but I play with these incredibly talented guys. I mean, incredibly talented. And I know that's not like a natural, I have to work really hard to be able to keep up. But, ultimately, years ago, and this is more of like an identity thing, but I had to, learn to sort of embrace like, I like whether it's, you can judge it independently as good or bad. I love to write songs, And so I had to embrace this idea of just being a songwriter. I had to give myself permission to say, I'm a songwriter. That doesn't mean I write Beatles level songs. It doesn't have to mean anything. It doesn't have to mean I write good songs, bad songs, whatever songs. Like everybody can think what they want, but for myself, to give myself permission to say, no, I'm a songwriter. Like whether it sucks, whether whatever, I'm just going to embrace that. And one could argue, yeah, well maybe you don't have to latch on to an identity, and that's true. Like you don't have to like hold on to one so tight that you don't feel like you can let go. This is how people get stuck in corporate America for years when they hate it. They feel like, oh, well, this is who I am. It's not who you are. Identities can come and go, but there is, I think, value in embracing something like that. I'm using that as a specific example. Hopefully that resonates with somebody. And just for me saying, yeah, I'm a songwriter, I write songs, allowed me the space for myself to just write songs and have a good time with it. And not worry about how they were or what other people would think about them or even sharing them. It was just about giving myself permission. And so that's an example of where I battle with, and I still battle with self-doubt and music, and I'm trying to course correct that in my language and saying, okay, stop saying you're not so good at this. You play in a band, like whatever, like just, you might think that, but just keep it yourself. Let's just like,
totally.
Let the good vibes come through, you know? So.
Yeah, I love the way you put that, and I think it anchors everything we've spoken about. It's a simple. You ultimately it's your decision, right, to give yourself permission.
Yeah, and it's very the lesson I think when you do that is you get empowered.
Yes.
And if you can empower yourself, that's everything starts from self-love and self-empowerment. And just remember you're worthy and you're loved and you love yourself, even if you don't feel like you do that day. Just know it's there and operate from that place. It's a place of empowerment, and then you can just start working through from that foundational piece, I think.
Okay, that's pretty awesome, and that's going to be hard to top, but now I wanted to give you some space to look back at this conversation, reflect a bit.
Rapid fire time?
No, before we get to the three rapid fires, you guys know the three rapid fires. Before we get there, just some space to just, any thoughts that you want to leave with the audience?
No, I try to leave those along the way. I think it's just, this is about authenticity, this podcast, and that word can be loaded, I think, for a lot of people, but you know what that means for yourself. And so I would say don't let anybody else define what authenticity is but yourself. And I know you asked this, something you ask your guests, right? And you're going to get a guest answer, you're going to hear my answer, you're going to hear other guests on this show's answer, but you don't even need words. Be present with yourself in that way. And intuition is a very underrated thing, because our practical minds are all over the place. I'm not saying I can always tap into it, but there is a certain feeling of, I don't know why, I don't know if this is the right thing, but it feels like the right thing for me. maybe that's worth listening to.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, even if it's scary, even if it doesn't make logical sense, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't always have to make logical sense. So
Totally. Yeah, great. And now the dreaded rapid fire.
dreaded.
Those are the same 3 questions I ask every guest, and it's
Have
actually.
you ever answered these, by the way? I want to hear your answers to these.
Oh boy!
Come
Turning
on,
the
we're
tables
going to turn it around.
on the spot. I love it. Are we going to do this?
No, we don't have to. We don't have to.
Well, we could. I mean, why not? It's yeah. I didn't have time to think about these, but I think I've been living them. I think. The truth is they evolve. But should I ask you first? I'll ask you first.
Sure,
okay.
Sure.
So the same 3 questions I ask every guest, okay? The first one, what is the biggest gift you've discovered about yourself on this journey?
It's this idea that it's going to be okay. Whether you fail, it's going to be okay. You know, whether you know somebody breaks your heart, it's going to be okay. It is a tough question, but I think, you know, ultimately, in the moment and in our emotions, it can be difficult to think it's going to be okay. And we have a lot of struggles as humans, and it's just something that's, you know, life can be a struggle, but it is going to be okay. So
I love that. I love that. Next, what is the hardest truth you've learned about yourself on this journey?
Can't remember what I wrote down about this. Can I look it up?
Cheat sheet.
Can I look it up? I did write,
we'll
I
break
wasn't
here
going to
for
do
a bit
this,
of,
but oh yeah,
a quick note
Yes.
from our sponsors. Okay, wait.
I can be my own worst critic.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one.
And so just be compassionate and be graceful with yourself. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. And finally, what is your definition of authenticity?
It was another one I struggled with. What
were
I
you
kind of
journaling?
what,
Were you like how were you doing?
I was doing a little bit of writing, trying to figure this out for myself. No, these were great questions, man. I appreciated them because people should. I would encourage people listening to answer these questions for themselves. Everything we talked about today, I think if you want a practical exercise to walk away with, just answer these 3 rapid fire questions because this is a foundation of what may be a snapshot of your values right now.
Wow. Yeah.
Which can change, you know, at any given moment. And I think we can think of ourselves as static sometimes, but we're always changing and evolving. And so, you know, kind of taking time for yourself for this type of exercise, I think is valuable. When I think about your authentic self, I think about, I'm a visual thinker, and what I landed on was kind of like, you have this version of you that you project to the world. Sometimes maybe that's aligned with your authentic self. Sometimes maybe it's not, for whatever reason. That doesn't mean good or bad. You know, you might behave different ways in different situations, whatever. I feel like we have this filter, and then we have sort of like our true selves, right? So maybe perhaps our authentic self is removing that filter and letting more of that, what's behind it, shine through and permeate what we're projecting.
I like that.
That makes sense.
No, that's a beautiful answer. And you said it earlier, actually, over 100 episodes now, every answer has been different on the show. It's because it's a very unique personal answer. Yeah,
going back to one thing we said before, I think, you know, in some ways, we as humans, we try to put words to everything, but maybe authenticity is tied with intuition in a way that you know, I guess that's a loaded word. It can mean a lot of different things. So I think for anybody listening and for myself, it's just embracing a feeling of authenticity. Maybe that's enough, you know?
Yes.
It's not about defining it or putting words to it. So maybe there's something there.
Awesome. And I think you're the first guest to actually turn it around. So in this quick moment, but I love it. And I think actually, like, kind of on the spot, I think, you know, my intuitive answer and probably themes that we actually talk about have over the course of the podcast is that the biggest gift would be, I think, my ability to make meaningful connections with people. It's just something that just comes just naturally to me.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like just human connection.
Yeah. You're wonderful at that. I mean, I just met you yesterday in person, but
thank you.
I mean, what you're so likable, man. I was just like, I like this guy immediately. So
Thank you, buddy.
I can
Thank
see
you.
why that's a good thing for you.
Yeah, and that's something I had to recognize about I didn't always know it.
Yeah, okay.
But
Yeah.
that's something I've discovered on this journey.
Yeah.
And then the hardest truth is that, living unconventionally, I'm not good about thinking a few steps ahead. I'm probably, when you're describing those different examples, probably jump into the deep end too soon.
Yeah.
And so maybe a little bit more forward-thinking practicality is something I'm getting better at.
Yeah.
So I think that's a hard truth for sure. Sometimes you discover it. It's unexpected. It's a hard truth you discover at the moment you don't want to discover it.
Sure.
And the final one is, it goes back, so I love how you were unpacking authenticity there. For me, it's as simple as alignment.
Yeah.
An alignment.
Sure.
And I think you describe it perfectly.
Boiling
because
it down
is
to
a
one
feeling.
word. Yeah,
it's a
that's
feeling.
great.
And you just know. And then if you really want to unpack it, I mean, beyond the feeling, but you just know it's the food, it's the people, it's the environment, and at that moment, that's alignment, and you're being your most authentic self.
I love that, man. If you can boil things down to one word like that, I think that's super powerful, because then you don't have to think about all these ideas. You can just think alignment.
And
is this aligned with me or not?
And you just know.
You just know. You just know.
Yeah. You just know.
Yeah.
Wow, what an awesome conversation.
I had a blast, man.
Thank you for
I
making
love
time.
getting, and thank you for the opportunity to sort of, we're all a work in progress. So getting to have a conversation like this with you gives me a lot of energy, and it gives me a lot of, a chance to reflect for myself and just kind of look at where I'm at now, and hopefully we provided some value for everybody listening. So,
and a really cool, I think, highlight of my trip after all these years. Thank you for all the work you've done, over 1,000 episodes. There are people like me that were listening, at a crucial time in life where you needed that inspiration. So
thanks.
So thanks for the work that you've done so far.
If people want to check it out, Zero to Travel is the podcast. It's all on all the podcast apps and whatnot. So
it'll be in the show notes, and definitely check it out. Check it out for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Come here.
Come on.
That was great.
Thanks so much.
Great.
Thank you. That's today's episode from South by Southwest. How cool is that? Thanks for tuning in.
There you have it. Thank you to Fede Vargas once again for allowing me the privilege of coming onto his show, My Most Authentic Life. You can check it out at mymostauthenticlife.com. We'll link up to everything in the show notes. I'm going to leave you with a quote on authenticity. By the way, don't forget, we have a newsletter over at zerototravel.com/newsletter. You can sign up to join the community over there if you want to keep in touch. And, you heard me at the end talking about authenticity, and one of the last things I said was perhaps it's just a feeling and there are no words to define what authenticity is. And the more I thought about this, the more that maybe I agreed with that version of the definition more than anything, because isn't it just a feeling? Really, it's hard to put words to authenticity or being authentic. It's a loaded word for many reasons. And I think that if we're living our most authentic lives or being our most authentic selves, we kind of know it. We kind of feel it. And if something's out of alignment, we feel that too. Maybe that's all we need, is the feeling, the general feeling that we're on track in some ways. And if we're not, making sure we make the decisions to get ourselves back in alignment with our authentic true selves, I suppose. I don't know, just some food for thought there as we rock out of this one. I'll leave you with this quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, who said, "To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment." I love that quote. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time. Peace and love to you and yours. Cheers.
This podcast has been brought to you by zerototravel.com. Ideas and advice to make your travel dreams a reality.